Tonight, our special guest on Coast to Coast, Gregg Braden. His work, The Divine Matrix, Bridging Time, Space, Miracles, and Belief, is going to be another one of those classics. We'll be back with Gregg in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. A former senior computer systems designer for Martin Marietta Aerospace, computer geologist, Phillips Petroleum, and the technical operations for Cisco Systems, Gregg Braden is considered a pioneer in bridging the wisdom of our past with the science, healing, and peace of our future. For more than 20 years, Gregg has searched high mountain villages, remote monasteries, forgotten texts to uncover their timeless secrets. Now, to date, his work has led to such paradigm-shattering books as The Isaiah Effect, The God Code, and his newest, The Divine Matrix, Bridging Time, Space, Miracles, and Belief. Gregg's work will show us beyond any reasonable doubt that we've got the power to reverse disease, redefine aging, and even change reality itself by embracing the focused power of human emotion as the quantum language of change. We'll explain all that in a moment. Gregg Braden. Hey, Gregg, welcome back. How are you?
George, it's a pleasure to hear your voice, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be speaking with you from the snow-packed high deserts of northern New Mexico tonight.
Kind of an unusual snowfall out that way.
It has been, if you want to go skiing anywhere in the world, it's not in the Alps, and it's not on the East Coast, it's not in the West Coast, it's right here in the Rockies this year.
This weather is just upside down, Gregg. I don't know what's going on. Maybe that's part of this divine matrix.
Well, we can talk. You know, George, what we're going to talk about tonight, this topic is so fundamental to everything that's happening in our world and in our lives that there is no topic that would not be relevant to what we're going to do tonight. So we can go anywhere with any of this tonight.
What do you mean by the divine matrix?
Divine matrix, it's a field of energy. George, Western science has just arrived within the last years of the 20th and now the early 21st century at an understanding that we have proven under laboratory conditions in the language of science that has been the place where ancient and indigenous traditions have always begun. So Western science is only now comfortable embracing the fact, and it is a fact now, that there is an intelligent field of energy that bathes all of creation, permeates everything in our world and beyond as far as we know, and with implications we're only beginning to understand. So scientists, they're publishing this in the journals, some great texts. Many of your guests have talked about this field. Scientists are looking at this and they're saying, okay, well, you know, this field is out there. What do we do with it? And this is the place where I believe it serves us to go into some of the most ancient traditions, some of them 7,000 years old in the case of the Vedas, because they began with this understanding. They said, sure, you know, everything's connected, and they spent their time, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, devising the understandings and helping to pass to future generations how this field applies in our lives. They didn't need to spend so much of their time proving that it's there for them. They used it in their lives.
Lynn McTaggart calls this the field. I have always called it a wireless internet. Are we all on that same page, Gregg?
We are, George. This field is so new that scientists have yet to agree upon a single name. I've had the honor of sharing a stage a number of times with Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Mm-hmm. He calls this nature's mind. Stephen Hawking calls it the mind of God. Lynn McTaggart, the folks at Noetic Science, simply call it the field.
Right. Max
Planck, in 1944, in just a stroke of brilliance, identified this field as the matrix. And what he said, in 1944, he said that all matter, the stuff our world is made of, he said it originates and exists only by virtue of a force. And he said we must assume behind this force the existence of what he called at that time a conscious and intelligent mind. And then he said this mind is the matrix of all matter, and it was based on those studies that the movie series was actually based on the work from Max Planck back in the 40s.
Well, you know, if you look at some of these pictures, Gregg, from the Hubble, and you look at this vastness of the universe, at least this universe, and we'll talk about the possibilities of more than just this one, but everything to me has purpose now. It has order. I don't know what it all means. I don't know why all these nebulas and constellations and various galaxies that we're stumbling across now. I don't know what their purpose is, but they all seem to fit some kind of larger puzzle, don't they?
Well, they do, George, and I think what the beautiful symmetry of everything we're speaking about, that there have been some very far-seeing scientists in our past. The Max Planck was one of them. Dr. John Wheeler, a colleague of Einstein's, who is still with us today, and I believe he's still active at Princeton University. He began talking about the implications of what this field means in our lives in a way that was very, very different from what other scientists were saying during his time. And even now, he's caught a lot of flack for some of the comments that he's made, because what this book, The Divine Matrix, is all about, what scientists are understanding under laboratory conditions, and what 5,000-year-old texts are saying to us is not only does this field exist, and not only are we part of this field, but we have the ability, George, within each of us to communicate in a meaningful way with this field in ways that seem in the Western world miraculous on the one hand, and on the other hand, this is why we've spent time in the monasteries of the high plains of central China and Tibet and in Egypt and Bolivia and Peru, because it's in these places where people have retained the understanding of what this field means and how to use it in their lives, healing their bodies and doing things to us that look like miracles. But to them, it's not a miracle, it's a technology, because they have remembered something that actually was part of our culture. When I say us, I mean us in the Judeo-Christian West, until the instructions that tell us how we use this field were actually edited among the 45 books that were edited out of our biblical text in the 4th century. So when we began rediscovering the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi Library, what we found was, as good as our Western biblical text is, and it's a good text, the best scholars will openly admit that it's incomplete. And now that we're fleshing out those incomplete pieces, what we're finding is that we once had as part of our history and our understanding the same thing that we find in these ancient and indigenous cultures. When we lost those understandings, their practices began to seem very strange to us, and we don't understand them. We call them primitive practices.
Do we think the Matrix occurred before this universe was formed, or did it come afterwards?
That's a good, very good question, George. And with the scientists I've spoken with, and in the research papers that we've had access to, the belief, no one knows for sure, so we'll preface it by saying that, but the belief is that it happened simultaneously with the birth of our universe, that there was a field of energy. There was a point in time when computer models and scientists believe our universe had just begun and it was expanding, but it had only expanded to about the size of a single green pea, if we can imagine that. So this is fractions of a second after this primal moment that physicists call the Big Bang. And they say it was very compressed. If you took all the space out from between all the matter in the universe and compressed it into one place in time, it would be about the size of this green pea. And at that point...
Isn't that bizarre?
Well, it is. You know, and I've got to tell you, George,
the brain can't comprehend that. Greg.
Well, they tell me that, and then they tell me it was about 18 million billion degrees. And I said, come on, you guys, how do you know that? And they said, well, we don't know that, but we know it was hot. We know it was really small and really hot a long time ago. And as the universe began to expand very rapidly, as part of this expansion, this field is what was carried with the expansion. So into the void, the nothingness, or whatever it was that we believed was here before, this field began to expand and fill the universe as a substrate, if you will, or a framework, providing the container within which our universe exists. If we want to think about this field, it's the stuff that holds everything together. We know that, and that's what many people talk about. But it does more than that, George. It has also been found to be a bridge between our inner experiences of feeling and emotion and belief.
I think it's alive.
And our outer world. It is. It's a living essence. It's, number one, it's a container. Number two, it's the bridge between our inner and outer worlds. And number three, it appears to be, under laboratory conditions, and what the ancients said, also a mirror in the quantum essence of the stuff around us, of what it is that we claim to be real in our coherent heart-based emotions. We'll talk about this tonight.
If it didn't exist, Greg, what would we have in this universe? Would we even